Hi, I'm Martin Kenny. I volunteer at the old Lowlight Heritage Centre, and from where, prior to the lockdown, I would lead guided walks. As part of my walk, we called into the lifeboat station, and having been coxswain for 16 years, it would be remiss of me not to mention the local history of the lifeboat. So here's a précis of what you would hear if you came on a future walk with me. Lifeboats on the Tyne go back to 1789 and the wreck of the collier brig Adventure. There was an easterly gale and the day was Sunday with lots of folk about. The ship came ashore on the sand at South Shields and broke up with a loss of 8 men, including the master, Strachan. 5 managed to struggle ashore alive. Above the site of the wreck is the area known as the Law Top, on which stood the Law House, where the gentlemen of the law would meet to discuss and share knowledge regarding trade on the Tyne, particularly the coal trade. The gentlemen of the law thought that the crew of the Adventure could have been saved if a suitable shore boat had been available. They weren't entirely altruistic in nature because good sailors were in short supply due to the attentions of the Royal Navy press gangs. And the press gangs are remembered in Shields by the aptly named Peggy's Hole. This was a naturally deep part of the river situated just off the present-day Fish Quay, where the Peggy, a press tender, would anchor whilst the press would spend their time so-called recruiting or impressing. A committee was set up under the chairmanship of Nicholas Fairley's, and with the approval of Trinity House, the gentleman placed an advertisement in the Newcastle Courant, which goes something like this. A reward of 2 guineas will be given to any person producing a plan which shall be approved of by the committee appointed for that purpose as the best, of a boat, capable of containing 24 persons and calculated to go through a very shoal, heavy, broken sea. The intention of it being to preserve the lives of seamen from ships coming ashore in hard gales of wind. Plans will be received on any day at the Law House, South Shields, and the committee will meet there at 3 o'clock on the 10th of June 1789 to determine who shall be entitled to the reward. The committee will be obliged to any gentleman favouring them with his hints or sending a plan prior to that day. And that was it. 2 models are documented as having been received, one from Henry Greathead, a boat builder and ship's carpenter with his business in South Shields, and one from Willie Woodhave, an inventor who had various jobs including parish clerk of St Hilda's Church, South Shields, house painter and singing tutor. A 3rd model was probably submitted by Michael Rockwood, one of the gentlemen, but like Henry Greathead's model, little is known. Willie's model was ahead of its time. It was self-righting, having a high centre of buoyancy due to its raised ends which were sealed watertight. It was made of tin plate, although the full-size boat was to have copper sheathing. Henry Greathead's model does not survive, but was considered unsuitable for the conditions, which were described in the advertisement as very shoal, heavy, broken sea. The best guess, ignoring the slightly derogatory description by his rival supporters much later, was that it was similar to a troop transporter which Henry had seen when serving as a ship's carpenter in the Royal Navy during the American War of Independence. Although Willie's boat was considered by the committee to be the better of the 2, it was decided not to make use of it, and instead of the 2 guineas reward, he was offered 1 guinea for his time and trouble, which he refused, although records show that at some later point he did in fact collect it. This left the committee in a bit of a quandary. It had never been their intention to design the boat themselves. So, by combining the experience of Michael Rockwood, one of the gentlemen, who'd been rescued from shipwreck near Memel in present-day Lithuania, and their own ideas regarding the shape, size, buoyancy, manoeuvrability and manning, a clay model was constructed and delivered to Henry Greathead to build. Henry made one suggestion, which was accepted, that the boat should have a curved or rocketed keel to improve its manoeuvring characteristics. This was no mean task to build a boat from a clay model. The resulting boat was 28 foot 6 inches in length, 9 foot 6 inches in breadth and 3 foot 2 inches in depth, not draft. It was clinker built, meaning it had overlapping planks, pointed at both ends and steered with a steering oar or sweep, one at each end to avoid having to turn the boat beam on in heavy seas. Cork fendering also provided buoyancy, and it was rowed by 10 men double banked. The cost, paid for by the coal trade, came to £149, 13 shillings and 9 pence. The boat was never officially named but became known as Original. It was stationed on the south side of the river in the area which is now the Harbour View housing development and completed its first recorded service on the 30th of January 1790. It saved about 500 people over a period of 40 years and was finally wrecked on the 21st of January 1830 whilst rescuing the crew of the sloop Glatton aground on the Black Middens. It was crewed by local river pilots who were employed by Trinity House. A further 8 years was to go by when in 1798 a second Tyne lifeboat was built and paid for by the Duke of Northumberland and aptly named Northumberland. It was stationed on the north side of the river at the foot of the new lowlight and launched directly into the river near Peggy's Hole. In 1884 the wooden boathouse was replaced with a new stone-built boathouse, only to be severed from the river 1 year later when the fish quay was built in front of it. Over the years there have been many lifeboats on the Tyne. The RNLI came into being in 1824, some 30 years after original, and the first RNLI lifeboat station on the river was at Prior's Haven in 1862, with the Royal National Lifeboat Constance replacing the Tyne Lifeboat Institution's boat Prior. The last Tyne Lifeboat Institution boat was the Bedford, whose last service call was in 1937. In 1968 she was transferred to Exeter Maritime Museum, thence Lowestoft and Eyemouth, before being sold at auction in 2017 and purchased by the Port of Tyne in conjunction with local businesses, and presently being restored by the North East Maritime Trust. The only other surviving examples are the Zetland in a museum at Redcar and the Tyne under a decorative canopy at the seaward end of Ocean Road, South Shields. The Tyne Lifeboat Society, previously the Tyne Lifeboat Institution, still exists as a registered charity supporting local life-saving groups and youth organisations within a marine context. The present-day Tynemouth all-weather lifeboat is a 7 class, the largest in the RNLI fleet and stationed at the east end of the fish quay. The Spirit of Northumberland arrived here in 1999 and is expected to have a 50-year service period. Her top speed governed is 26 knots with a range of 250 nautical miles and a crew of 6 or 7. The last of this class was built in 2004 at a cost of £2 million, at today's prices about £3 million. So we've come a very long way from our 1789 £149, 13 shillings and 9p lifeboat. There are many excellent books written about the Tyne lifeboats, and if you want to go the extra mile you might like to try Rescues in the Surf by Stephen Landells or Mr Greathead's Lifeboats by Adrian Giosler, but there are quite a few books around. Anyway, I look forward to seeing some of you on my actual walk when this lockdown finally comes to an end. Bye.